math people, let's continue with angle relationships. Today's lesson is going to focus on complementary, supplementary, and adjacent angles. All right, so let's start with complementary. So complementary or complementary, all right, you say potato, I say potato. All right, so complementary angles are angles that add up to 90 degrees. All right, and remember, 90 degrees, that's a right angle. So they add up to 90, or we can think of it as angles that form a right angle. All right, now I have an example drawn here. All right, so here I have a right angle. All right, it normally reminds you of a corner. It should be like the perfect corner in your house. It's 90 degrees. We'd call those two line segments perpendicular. All right, and I have two angles here. I've got this angle up top, which I'll call angle 1. All right, another way to label an angle is with an arbitrary number. All right, and this bottom angle I already know is 30 degrees. All right, now I know that these two angles add up to 90 because they're complementary. So the easy way to find a missing angle, all right, if I know they're complementary, I just do 90 minus whatever angle I know. All right, so I just do 90 minus 30. Guess what? That gives me 60 degrees. So I know that angle 1 is equal to 60 degrees. All right, now it's not always going to be that simple. All right, next week I'm going to try to do some lessons with some more challenging examples, but I'll save that for next week. All right, so if you're trying to find a missing angle and you know they're complementary, you do 90 minus the angle you know, all right, and that'll give you your missing angle. All right, and you can always check this, all right? So if angle 1, I know that's I know that's 60 degrees, all right? I know that these two angles here need to add up to 90. Do they? 60 plus 30, sure do. They equal 90, all right? So that's complementary angles. They add up to 90. All right. Similar, but not the same, we have supplementary angles. These are angles that add up to 180 degrees or a line. All right. So when I think 180 degrees, I think of like a straight line. I think like a wall in your house. All right. It's flat. I think flat when I think 180. All right. Now, here's an example. All right. So I have a line, all right, and it's broken into two angles here. I've got one obtuse angle, all right, obtuse means greater than 90. I'm throwing a lot of stuff at you guys. Some of it's review though, all right. So I've got an obtuse angle of 150, and then the other angle, I don't know what it is. All right, let's name this some other way. Let's call the vertex here, let's call it A. Let's call this line here C. Let's call this line here T. All right, so we want to find this missing angle, and I'm going to call that angle CAT, or CAT. That's why I chose those letters. So if I want to know what angle CAT is, all right, and I have another angle that I know it's supplementary to, I can take 180 degrees, and I can subtract the angle I know. So I can subtract 150 from 180, and I get 30 degrees. All right, so that tells me that angle CAT is equal to 30 degrees. All right, and again, it's not always going to be that simple, but let's keep it easy to start. All right, so supplementary means they add up to 180. All right, if you need to find a missing angle, you do 180 minus whatever angle they give you, and that gives you your missing angle. Now I do have two tricks for you, so you'll never forget this, all right? Because I remember when I was your age, I would get to a quiz or a test, and I'd be like, oh man, what's complementary? What's supplementary? I can't remember. Which one's 90, which one's 80? All right, no one showed me a trick. I wish I knew a trick. All right, so here's a trick. For complementary, it starts with the letter C. You draw a C, all right? Well, guess what a C can turn into? You can turn a C into a 9 for 90 degrees. All right, so there's my complementary trick. All right, I didn't invent this. It's probably been around forever. All right, the trick for supplementary is supplementary starts with S. You draw an S. Well, guess what number an S can be turned into? It can be turned into an 8 for 180 degrees. All right, so that's kind of a goofy 180, but you turn the S into an 8. That should remind you of 180 degrees. All right, so those are the two tricks. I think I asked you about that on your challenge board. All right, last relationship, adjacent. Probably should have done this one first, because adjacent angles, they can be supplementary, they can be adjacent, but what you need to remember is adjacent angles, they are next to each other. All right, they are angles that share a side and a vertex. So let's see how my freehand is. All right, so I just made an angle. There's a vertex. Let's add another line segment coming out of there. All right. All right, so here we are. All right, I'm going to call this angle 1 and this angle 2. All right, notice they are next to each other. All right, they share a vertex, the point where the line segments or the lines come together. All right, and they also share a side. All right, this middle line segment coming out, they share that. So I would say angle 1 and angle 2 are adjacent. All right, now it doesn't look like they're complementary. All right, and you can't just assume that something forms a right angle. So let's add some numbers here. Let's say that the two angles together, all right, that big arc that I just drew, let's say that is 80 degrees. All right, so that encompasses angles 1 and angle 2. And let's say angle 1 is 30 degrees. All right. All right, now I can do the same thing I did with complementary and supplementary. All right, I can basically take what they both add up to, which in this case is 80, and I can subtract the angle that I know. I know that angle 1 is 30, so I subtract 30, and that gives me a missing angle of 50 degrees. So angle 2 is 50 degrees. So angle 2 equals 50 degrees. And again, you can always check these. All right, I know that both of them add up to 80, so I would do 30 plus 50 equals 80. All right, and again, it's not always going to be this easy. Next week, we're actually going to use let statements and equations and use algebra and solve equations with a variable. All right, but let's keep it simple. All right, so as always, send me a message if you have questions.